Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. A talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me through benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcasts. People of Distinction is internationally syndicated solely due to the love and support that you all continue to give. We're available across all major distributors, and as long as you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in, because on the line with us today, we have the impressive Seena Rothrock. And we're going to be discussing her incredible book, I Survived, Bilateral Choanal Atresia. Man, it's Amazon, it's a lot of other places. People, type it into a search bar, sit back, and be greeted with them all. And listen, I Survived, that's the anchor for today. But that's not all right? Seena is in the process of creating a sequel to this book. Same main title, I Survived, but that one is I Survived Chaotic Driveway. Chaotic Driveway is the subtitle. You're going to want to pick that up, man. Check back in frequently to purchase it the moment it becomes available. Now, before I go any further, I want to quickly take this opportunity and point out the fact that Seena was brought to us by Author Reputation Press. So for writers out there listening in who have gone through their process and now you need assistance moving the book you just worked so tirelessly to create, well, head on over to authorreputationpress.com and gather all the ways that their fantastic team is more than equipped to help you do just that. People, imagine entering the world and already being unable to breathe. Now, imagine that almost a decade later, you discover that the reason was literally left inside you. Okay. My goodness, I've mentioned this a number of times on previous occasions. Okay, my wife is a physician. I hear some of the most outrageous stories from the surgical room. But this one, man, I feel like this one takes the cake. Okay, this one is one that I have never heard of myself. You see, Seena survived a rare condition. Now, that condition, as I mentioned, is the title of her book, Bilateral Choanal Atresia. But her true fight began when the medical system failed to see her suffering. She's joining us today to unpack her memoir, but this is one that you aren't going to be able to put down. You're going to be astounded at such an occurrence, and hopefully it helps you start some conversations, man, and raise some awareness. This is an absolutely incredible story. Let's dive in. We have a lot of information to cover. Seena, first and foremost, welcome to the network, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today?
Well, thank you, Benji. I'm inspired. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm really happy to be with you today.
Well, listen.
Author Reputation Press has been very helpful with me in my writing, and I'm really glad to take this next step and happy to connect with yourself and potential readers. It's really important to me to share my story, so thank you for the welcome.
Listen, it is our pleasure. The praise goes right back to you, Seena. To hear your story and the research that we have done, I'll tell you, when my research team and I were piling together the format of today's discussion, we were astounded. We were incredibly taken aback that something like this could have gone unnoticed. So this is an incredible story, and I thank you for writing the book, and I thank you even more for being here with us to discuss it. Let's jump right in. Seena, I want to start off with inspiration. Let's start off at that foundation. Now, a multi-part question here, because I know that it's multifaceted. First and foremost, who inspired you to even become an author? And then, what inspired this particular book? Why did you feel compelled to share your story?
Well, I can say that I was inspired for a long time to write the book. And I had family who also supported this. Mm-hmm. That was the first step. But then once I began writing the book and sharing my story, I could see how worthwhile this effort was, because I've inspired other people and their response to me is inspirational in return.
Listen, it is no surprise to me that you've received such favorable responses. Let's dive right in. I have a lot of other questions to ask, but let's learn more about your book, I Survived. Tell us more about it.
I have really wanted to write this book for a long time. It was a dream of mine, actually. Then a couple of years ago, I really got a push from my aunt who said, let's start collecting the documentation from the medical records so that you have what you need to write this book. And so my aunt went through a lot of records with me, and we really dug to the details of that early experience. And that was anxiety producing to me, to be honest, because I didn't know what I was going to find. And also, you know, being deaf in an all-hearing environment, there's so much information in life that is missing. So once we started this process of gathering information, I felt like the barriers were surmountable, that there was a way through to write this book. And then in the end, my cousin, who is also deaf, came and sat with me and went through the whole book with me and really pushed me to not worry that the book was short, to not worry about anything about the process, but that to complete it and get the story out there to be shared. Once it started being shared through Amazon, I just started getting messages from people, and not even a single negative message came back to me in today's world of people loving to have negativity. So, you know, I don't know what doctors or other people will think of it, but I think it's an important story to share, and hopefully this can prevent similar things happening to others. I want to be clear that my whole family is deaf, so entering the medical system in this setting was especially challenging because there's no one in my family who was there to translate. There were no professional interpreters. And so we really my parents had no communication. And as a child growing up, we would go to these doctor's appointments, or when I was born, you know, my family in the hospital had no access to what was actually happening with my care.
Wow.
And that was a very important layer around this experience.
Wow. Thank you for adding that, Seena. And people, listen, we've barely scratched the surface, okay? There is still so much to her story, and we're going to cover some more, but you know where you got to go. You got to head on over to Amazon, man. Type it into a search bar. The book is entitled I Survived Bilateral Choanal Atresia. You got to purchase your copies. While you're at it, check back in frequently because there's another one. That one's going to be entitled I Survived Chaotic Driveway. Still in creation, not available for purchase just yet, but it's definitely one you're going to want to add to your shelf as well because the story continues. You want to continue to be a part of it. My follow-up now, Seena, let's talk a little bit about your title, all right? Tell us more about its creation and why you felt that was the way to properly represent your book.
I picked that title from a few options. I tried a few options out, and then I wanted to match the intensity of the experience. And surviving it is really what it was all about. I had to survive this long process of medical neglect. So I wanted the title to reflect the intensity. And also you can see on the cover, there's a picture of me as a child. It's clear that there's, you know, something happening there with my nose.
Yep.
So the picture helps introduce the topic in a way that I felt was impactful because I was an infant, not able to advocate for myself in any way or communicate. And all of this was being done to me.
Seena, can you walk us through some more of your experiences with the book, please?
Well, this experience that I had, I want to say, really impacted my mental health. Those important developmental years, it was a high level of frustration. And trying to access the medical system as a deaf family was difficult. And then there was the emotional stress, the difficulty with that. And then growing up, being bullied as a child because I looked different. And so, in addition, the symptoms were very visible, the discharge from my nose. Luckily, I had a friend who I grew up with who was my protector. Many of the kids at school, you know, didn't accept me. So there was this additional trauma socially But luckily I had my one guardian friend. And that was the situation until I was 9. And then when I was 9, the mistake was found. The situation was corrected. At the time, I had such an infection that my whole head was swollen, and I was brushed off by other doctors. But this one doctor let his curiosity lead him. He was an ENT, and he found what was the cause all this time. And so in that experience, I had weird experiences, like I had never smelled fresh air, but my family was aware of this journey and the trauma and then the recovery after the mistake was corrected at 9. So it was really my family that has supported me through the entire process.
Seena, listen, we have discussed a lot of information here today. And as I mentioned, barely scratched the surface. There's still so much to uncover. But before I let you go, is there anything else? Are there other parts that you'd like to tell us? You'd like to tell our listening audience before we close out?
I'd like to emphasize that hearing people in the world look at the deaf community as a problem often requires an interpreter. That seems onerous sometimes for people. Mm-hmm. But in medical settings, deaf people have fought for decades for our rights to have communication. And one of the reasons I wanted to write this book was really for my family, who fought so hard for me through this whole process with no access to communication, and they never gave up on me. They pushed and pushed until there was a result, a resolution, an answer. So the challenge of the medical system being in a language that we didn't have access to was a considerable factor in how long this went on. So I think being open to deaf people and communicating differently and making sure that communication happens for everyone, especially in medical situations, was a really key component for me of this whole journey.
Mm-hmm. Seena, thank you. Thank you for what you just said. Again, thank you for writing this book, putting your journey on the page. And listen, I find myself coming back to a similar place where I started. Because as I mentioned, your book is deeply personal to you and to your circumstances, but it carries so much relatability. And what I mean by that is, listen, people, everyone listening in right now, we all know what it feels like to be misunderstood in a moment that mattered. Seena's journey, it asks us to be better witnesses to ourselves, to our loved ones, to the quiet battles that no one sees, right? Because listen, not every survival story leaves visible scars. Not every healing makes headlines, but every single one of us is navigating some version of a quote unquote after. Seena just had the bravery to write hers down so that the rest of us might feel less alone in ours. This book implores, man, it challenges us to, again, be better witnesses, but also to be kind to the story that you're still writing. There is so much left to be uncovered here, but I can't think of a more powerful way to close out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to advise you again. It's Amazon. It's entitled I Survived by Seena Rothrock. And this is one you don't want to pass up. This is a gift that you want to get for someone else to add to their shelf. Embark upon the journey, raise the awareness, have conversations with those around you. Because I believe by doing that, we can become a better community looking out for one another. And thankfully, in her story, there was that one curious doctor that she had mentioned. Well, who else amongst us will have that same curiosity to help those around us? That is a great message to leave off on. Head on over there, purchase your copies today. Seena, this has been a true honor, an absolute blessing. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
I'm inspired. I got goosebumps. I'm very honored that I felt seen. So I appreciate having the opportunity to share.